Knight's moves are extremely important. We all use them in our games. They're a very recognizable shape. It's one of the six basic hangma, right? Um, but a lot of us use it incorrectly, and we don't understand how they work per se. Like, yes, we try and use them to attack, or yes, we try and use them to escape. But I see all the time, even in high single digit Q games, where you misread something and it gets cut very easy and then you just die, right? And so they should have never did a knight's move, but they did and then got killed. So let's just talk about it. The small knight shape is more fast paced and more compared to the diagonal or the one jump. It's flexible and light, but this is where people get hung up. Because it's light, it can be cut very easily. And so when we use these knight's moves, we can expect to use sacrifices when using the knight's jump. There's two ways to properly cut the knight move. First would be, in this example, we would push, they try and connect, and then we cut, right? And so this is a nice, almost like the pinwheel shape, very similar to a cross cut, and we're extending on each side. So this is one way to properly do it. The other way would be to what they call cutting across the knight's waist. So if we think of this maybe as like a person and we slice through their waist, their yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know how it's to say it, but that's what they call it. They call it cutting across the waist. So if black tries to connect now, we get very similar shape. It's pretty much the same shape, just the opposite side. There is a dirty way to cut the knight's move with a diagonal. I don't know if it's in these slides actually. I kind of forget. I was reviewing it before I did the class and I didn't see it. In some of my own games, I've had to do a dirty knight's cut, which is essentially when you have to use a diagonal. So this is considered actually pretty bad because it's an iron pillar versus a diagonal. This is a dirty knight's cut and it is usually not good. There should be a slide for it. I remember making one, but I'll admit I don't remember seeing it in the rehearsal. So let's find out. So this is somewhat of a common pincer. And white will try and jump out, right? And so here's our use of our knight's move. When black pushes to cut, which is the scariest one, right? Most of us would probably want black to play here, but if black chooses to fight, now we come to a very common fight and a common pincer. In the book, it stops here, and I didn't think this was enough. Like I was like, as a Go player, even myself, I felt like I was like, whoa, well, what's going to happen next, right? So I ended up checking the Josecopedia button, and it had some very cool information. So white plays here now, and this is what was in the Josecopedia. Once called Unreasonable in Toshiro Kageyama's famous book, Lessons in Fundamentals of Go. We now regard this move as the best move for the local position. This is a difficult Joseki that leads to tough fighting. So this is pretty tough. It's very advanced. I don't expect you to memorize it at all, but I figured I'd just go through it just so you guys can see. So black pushes for more liberties. White then continues to swallow these black stones. Well, black has a very vulnerable stone, so he strengthens his cutting stone. White hits the vital point. Black hits the vital point. White pushes out for more liberties. This is where white has to connect because there's lots of throw-ins and mess here. So by connecting, we get 5 liberties where black only has 4. So this is where we have enough to kill black. So now black finishes the Joseki by taking the outside and white gets the inside. Once again, I don't expect you to memorize this. It's just I didn't think that this was enough. So I wanted to see what would happen further. And I did like the idea because everyone loves this book. I don't know if you guys have read it, but Kageyama's book is really funny and extremely well written. And so it's cool to see that this was unreasonable and now like it's the only way. I'll move on. So here we have another pincer. So instead of the low move, white plays high and then black pincers. And so once again, we use the knight's move. So now if black cuts across the waist, we can see white produces this fight. And in this, it says in modern games, pincers like this don't show up that much because the AI says that you don't get a good result. So for black, doing this pincer is not really, doesn't lead to a good result. Um, from the standpoint, you might say you shouldn't pincer without a good reason. Now, if black, of course, has a good development here to make a bunch of points, then I think the pincer is very reasonable. But if it was just a regular one-on-one fight, it's just saying that we don't really see these pincers anymore. So in this case, white should have a good fight. Now, the Joseki didn't continue in the book again, and actually the Josekipedia didn't have a variation for this. So I kind of just left it alone. But what it's saying is white should have a good fight here. And you can kind of see that when even white just extends down, black is pretty weak here and has a weakness here. Whereas white isn't that weak here. So white only has one group to worry about, but black has two. All right, I'll move on.